appreciate you talking to me about this. It's such a unusual, odd, interesting story and way to present a story like this. I'm curious, when you read the script, was it pretty clear, the vision of this?
No, actually, like I read the script, and the script is, it is the script of that later became the movie, but reading it, I was like, oh, this is so strange. It's beautiful, and it's posing all these important philosophical questions, but it's weird, and it was a very hard time for me actually envisioning exactly what the result of the film would become. There's so many different ways of doing this story, and it could feel more like a weird sci-fi movie, or something more toned down and more human, which is the end result of the film. But I did not know what. There's some scripts that you read and you have a very clear sense of what the result's going to be, but not with this one. And even shooting as well, it was like, oh, we're figuring that out. And for me, I thought that my main objective being in this movie was to support Edson's vision of how he wanted it, because he wrote it. It was very personal story to him. That it was just like, what is it that you want to say with this? And I can use whatever tools that I have at my disposal to support that vision. And then finally seeing the movie when it premiered in Sundance, I was so incredibly moved and impressed by the end result of the film, and Edson's vision coming to fruition, and also incredibly moved by all the actors that I did not have scenes with, but did get to know during the shooting. I mean, we rehearsed for a few weeks and we hung out, and I thought that all the performances were so stellar that it was a very moving experience finally seeing the result.
One of the things that's so interesting about this is that questions of life and the universe make for big concepts, but the approach of this really is very small and intimate. Was that something that ultimately surprised you? I mean, you're talking about these big concepts, but you're sitting in somebody's living room, it's just, I thought that was such an interesting aspect of the story.
Yeah, it really is. And I think the movie really benefits from it, that it is this very intimate portrait of humans, really, even though that not really any character is human apart from Will. There was always there were these aspects in the script as well, for sure, and it was going to be this house filled with old boxy televisions and VHSs. It was like, oh, it's very unique that way. But yeah, and even in telling these sort of last moments for all of these candidates of that he's recreating something that almost tastes like life for them for their final moment before they disappear into the oblivion, was minimalistic in the script, but still, I mean, again, it was a surprise seeing how well it all came together, and a high concept feeling that intimate and personal. It really moved me.
I'm guessing that it's a pretty rare opportunity to play a character that's mostly a blank slate. He's this new soul that hasn't lived before. How did you approach this character in figuring out who he is? When you play someone that has no past or backstory, where do you begin?
Yeah, I mean, and that was questions that I had even going into my first meeting with Edson. After reading the script, I was like, okay, what is your thoughts and beliefs on these candidates? What are they? Where did they come from? Or, these are characters without any past or anything really. So they're forming their personality as you get to know them. So the first week of rehearsal, that was something that I think all of us playing the candidates were all like, okay, what does all of this mean? Like, when I try an apple for the first time, what happens? Do you want a sensation of like, oh my God, I feel taste for the first time, and like, or do you want something where it's like, oh yeah, it's almost like they've been there before? and Edson wanted something that was much more, naturalistic and simpler and more intimate. So, which was like, for me, my goal was just to support his vision. So whatever he wanted from it, right? So, and it's not that hard for me to do a character without, a backstory per se. I think that backstories that are not in the scripts can sometimes be overrated to have, at least if you really dig into it. But it was something where, what's the character, what's his, in a way, the characters are sort of these personality archetypes. So leaning into that, and the answers for the characters are instinctual, not based of or because of a past. So they're instinctual. So there's something that what I could like draw from. So the question is, and the answer sort of surprises the candidate. It just comes out automatic because there's no filter to it. That they are just what they are, really. But it was a challenge, and it was also a lot of fun, and again, it was just like, for me, every day it was just like, Edson, what do you want? What's your vision for this? It was such a personal story to him. He wrote the script, so like whatever he wanted, I tried to give him.
What was the production like on this? Was this something where, because so much of it really is stripped down without any bells and whistles, you only had to do a couple of takes of each scene, or was there more time spent exploring things in the scenes?
Yeah, most of it was shot on a stage where they built the interior of the house. It was quite comfortable. We shot it in Salt Lake City in Utah, end of the summer, September. At times it was really hot, but then the longer we went into the production, it kind of cooled down to a beautiful, early fall there. And yeah, we in the beginning was more about exploring, because I was like, Edson, I could give you a lot of different things here for the character, like weirder things if you wanted something that's more sci-fi-esque, or something, or performances being more abstract because the movie's abstract. But again, he didn't want that. So then it became to, finding that right tone, and yeah, and still exploring. And sometimes it was just like, figuring it out. And as soon as Edson felt that he had something, we moved on. Like the only day, for me at least, that took a really long time was like the dinner scene towards the end of the film, was, a lot of coverage and sort of a camera rig that would like circle around us and all of that. But other than that, it's most of my scenes were just me and Winston, and classic coverage, and we got to have fun with it.
There's been some talk about you joining John Wick 4. Is that true?
Yeah, it's true.
What made you want to do that? Are you secretly, do you want to be an action star? Like what was the attraction to that?
No, I think the movies are very entertaining. I've always been a fan of these kind of over the top, exploitive action movies. And yeah, Chad reached out to me, and I've met him a few times, and I really like him. And it was a really fun role. It was. I'm not going to go into detail of what it is, but it was just a fun role in a fun world where I like the movies. I think they're entertaining, and it is something that I haven't really done before. So that's always something that does inspire me, for whatever it is. It's like, okay, this is a project or a genre or something that I haven't done. So let's try it out, and let's have fun within those sort of genre constraints. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
How do you think the action will compare to stuff that you've done before? We've seen the kind of action those films have to offer. Is it something that you'll have to train a lot for?
No, not for like I won't get into too much detail for of
Yeah.
it, but yeah, I mean, again, it's something different, and so that's why I wanted to do it. Like I think that this I've had it for a very long time. Like I want to be try to be as versatile as I possibly can, whether it is crossing genres or playing just these vastly different characters. So you know, actually just finished a horror film, but like I feel like the horror genre is something that I've done a lot of. So you know, you know, I like to do comedies. I like to do action. I like to do as much as possible, and I think that's sort of a key to to longevity in this business, in having a fun career where you can go like, oh, I can do a lot of different things, so you don't end up becoming, you know, limited into this box, which happens all the time. You know, the industry itself is like, whatever is your last big success, that's what they think that you are. So they're like, oh, he's great at being, you know, freaky monsters. So then it's like freaky monsters is your type, and you're like, wait a minute, like I can do a lot more than that. So I'm just trying to do you know, as many different types of roles and projects as I can, and as long as there's something that I find interesting and fun in the character, that's how I respond to it. And I'm like, oh, I can do something with this that that inspires me. So yeah, basically it's as simple as that.
Did you, with 9 days, did you have conversations with Edson about why this guy was ultimately the one who was chosen?
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, it had less to do with me and more to do with Winston's character and Will, who ultimately comes up with that decision. And you know, I think that there were, I don't want to break. You should actually ask them this question, because there's certain moments in the script that makes Will make this decision that he ends up making, and they're very specific, and that had more to do with Will than it had to do with me. And for why making that call, I thought it was very strong, because there's the critique that the movie has to this kind of harsh and unforgiving world that we live in becomes stronger with that ending, I thought. So I thought that there was a point for the movie to end that way, as well as you know, the reasons for why Will ultimately makes that call.
Yeah, I thought it was so interesting. I mean, obviously, when you watch the whole movie, you really get a sense of why that decision was made. I think it's so interesting, because there are so many layers. You realize how many layers of things are actually going on in something that seems so simple.
Yeah, and again, I mean, I think that I hope that people that walk out of the theater after they've seen this film, you know, go and have a drink and try to dissect it and talk about it. And I think that a lot of people will have very different opinions on it as well. It becomes like this, the film itself, you know, invites a spiritual and philosophical conversation afterwards. So people might be upset about certain things, and like, oh, and then that can lead into an argument, and then that can, you know, build a conversation and conversation starter, which I think the movie has. And I you know, that's a great part of great films, is that people talk about them, think about them, and care about them afterwards.
Well, I appreciate you talking to me about this one. I think that it's one of those things that could have endless conversations. So I appreciate it.
Yeah. No, thank you.